for a number of years enjoyed the opportunity to serve in the United States Congress. I'm in my 10th term, but now that I am the lead Democrat on science-related appropriations, I'm having an extraordinary time in the Congress because I see our investment in science as the most important ingredient in terms of America's continued global leadership. And I know there's some debate in this town by others who think that we should retreat on this subject, but let me say a few things. One is, I've actually seen more of the science that our country's invested in than any other member of Congress. I've been to Los Alamos and Sandia and Aragon and Firma. I've been out to the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and I've seen the James Webb Telescope and its development, and I've seen a lot of what is happening at our universities and federally financed research on all kinds of subjects. And so on behalf of our nation, let me thank each and every one of you, and through you, your colleagues, for the great work that you have done and are doing on behalf of not just generations that live today, but for those whose life chances will be enhanced through your work in the future. Thank you very much for what you have done and what you are doing. Now, neuroscience, for those who paid any attention to anything I've said the last few years, you know is a superior among equals among my priorities.
So now we know why Alan.
And so in my first CJS bill, we created the first ever federal collaboration, a high priority intensive research effort, bringing together dozens of federal agencies to collaborate around what investments we could make so that we could make some significant advances in this area. I'll just spend a minute talking about this. First of all, the process is one that I think is useful, even though I'm much more focused on outcomes. The process of this collaboration among NIH, the National Institute of Health, the National Science Foundation, Food and Drug Administration, Veterans, and DOD, and I could go through the whole list, but there are over 20 federal agencies that have participated in this effort. And we saw when the President rose for the State of the Union, him announce this, I think, central effort of this collaboration, even though it's not the only one, and you'll see more when the final report comes out in June, to focus on the BRAIN initiative. Now, this collaboration is critically important, and it was our first effort in this regard. But in the last CJS bill, which people probably haven't noticed, the ink is not yet dry on it, I guess, but there is another effort that I've authored that would have the Office of Science and Technology Policy in the White House now convene the pharmaceutical industry to develop a coherent approach that would set the decks so that we could see, rather than a retreat from big pharma in this area, actually re-entry into the fight. We have over 500, close to 600 brain diseases and disorders, with millions of families who are dealing with these challenges. We have a growing population in which, just in terms of dementia alone, 10% of those 65 now, 40%, 85 and older. This is a critical issue in terms of the nation's fiscal health and in terms of our long-term prosperity. Half the patients in our nation's nursing homes, Alzheimer's patients alone. But there's also, on the subject of teaching and learning so much, that would be important about better understanding the workings of a healthy brain. So it's not just the pursuit of cures and treatment. We are pursuing knowledge in this area because we know, as has been proven in every other circumstance, this knowledge will enhance the lives that each of us get a chance to live and will enhance our country. Now, there's some in the Congress. My good friend, Chairman Smith, has got a proposal that I know that has some people concerned. first of all, I want you to be assured that that this proposal to push aside or to interfere with peer review. Now, this is the National Science Foundation. This is the premier basic science research entity in the world. And other nations that have attempted this have used this as a model to go forward, right? So the last thing we want to do is to get in the way of good science with some of the political discourse that is sometimes, uninformed here in Washington. So I know that Lamar has done some very good work on patent reform. I've worked with me in a number of different capacities, including the Ethics Committee. But this is not a proposal that will engender a great deal of support on the Hill. I think there'll be bipartisan opposition to it. And moreover, I know that the White House would oppose it. So this is a concern, but I do think that one of the things that we need to be doing is not just being opposed to that, but actually explaining to the public and explaining to members of Congress how research that may seem, in one sense, headed in a direction that's hard to decipher can, in a blink of an eye, actually be very important to our country. So when we see the advantages of MRIs today, it would be hard for someone to imagine that the focus of the research that led to that had to do with deciphering what was happening in clouds in the sky. So when we think about the $8 billion invested in the James Webb Telescope, it may be difficult for people to understand how that might, in some respects, lead to better imaging tools when brain tumors are being operated on in operating rooms around our country. But there is an intersection between basic scientific research and advancements. And so when you're out looking for your golf ball and you're using your GPS, you have some sense that there are investments in NASA. In fact, there's so many things that impact us every single day that has been the direct result of federally invested research. So I have a lot of interest in this area, and I have a lot of responsibility, whether it's NOAA and all of its various activities, which are critically important. One that I think is most important, our National Weather Service. So this morning we wake up in 6 states, we have snow, and we have wildfires going on. We have a lot going on. And the 1,100 land-based observation points in our country are satellites that help us understand what's going on with the weather and the navigation of our waterways. This is important. What we need to be doing is spending more time educating the public because if they were concerned about flight delays with air traffic controllers, they may actually be in favor of more funding for NOAA when they understand that the ability of airlines to navigate the skies in part is helped through the work of the National Weather Service, and that our movement of troops at sea, I mean, all of this is very, very important. So I have responsibilities in terms of our work at NASA, which is extraordinarily exciting. I saw the Mars rover land after 8.5 months of travel to the surface of Mars. I was on the control room floor at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and I had my 14-year-old daughter with me. She was much more interested in Morgan Freeman being there. But that's okay. I'm sure she's eventually going to go to Caltech. Someone will have it. She's a straight-A student. But the point is that our nation has led the world in terms of science and innovation. Our economy is strong today because of it. And the only possibility that our country of some 300 million is going to compete successfully against billion-plus populated countries going into the future is is that we have to invest more, not less, more in scientific endeavors and innovation. We have to get an additional generations of young Americans to pursue terminal degrees in the hard sciences. We have to do more at the undergraduate level in terms of promotion of research by undergraduate students. There's a lot of work for us to do, and we have some concerns about it because our country has been treading water, to say it, that's probably an understatement. As we, I met with a postdoc student from Boston University who had just come back from Zurich, Switzerland, doing work on with the super collider there. Well, if you were looking for the most powerful super collider in the world, in the past, that would have been here in America. And today, you can go to Oak Ridge. I've been there, and we have the world's fastest supercomputer, but next year we won't. And if we don't continue to make investments in these critical areas, we are going to fall behind. And it may put us in a position where we're trying to explain to our grandchildren how it is that on our watch we allow our nation to be put in a deficit position in this regard. We have much smaller countries like Singapore making significant multi-billion-dollar investments in the life sciences, actually recruiting some of our great talent from America. And Singapore's got less people, 4.8 million, less people than we have in the Philadelphia area. So if they can make a $7 billion investment in their National Science Foundation and their efforts, why it is that we would be having some debate here about whether or not the wealthiest nation in the world can afford to make these investments. So no matter how expensive it may seem, I'm convinced that ignorance costs us more as a nation, and we have to do what others in the past have done. We have to make these investments, make the sacrifices that are necessary. It's also obviously important for our national security. I've spent some time looking at the nuclear security enterprise at Los Alamos and Sandia and Oak Ridge, and you look at these various components of our fundamental deterrent to a major conflict, which is you can't have a nuclear stockpile that's not modernized, that's not being handled properly, and we have to have the scientific capabilities and the critical skills to handle this as a nation. So there's a lot else that I could say, but I'd rather take time. I told Alan I'd be glad to